So what do we do with all of the books at the end of the school year? Or if you're like me, what do you do with the pile of books that has been growing for a couple of years? So I've been homeschooling for going on 9 years now. That seems like such a long time. So you can only imagine the amount of books that I have in my house. And I have a really hard time giving up books. I don't know what it is, but when I find good books that I really like, I hold on to them, and I think I hold some kind of like sentimental value in books. I don't know. Does anybody else do that? Am I the only one who does that? I don't know. Maybe it's because I have like this nostalgic feeling. Like if we really liked a curriculum, I have such a hard time getting rid of it because we had so much fun doing it. Even though I know I'll never use it again because, I only have 2 kids. So there's only so long I can use a curriculum, or so many times I can use a curriculum. So I thought it would be a fun idea to give you guys an inside look of what I do with curriculum at the end of the year. All right, so like I said, I've been going on teaching for 9 years in my home. I have a lot of books. I have multiple children. So my closet is getting very, very stacked with boxes of books. I really had to think over the years of what to do with the books. Like, what kind of strategy am I going to do? Because as a military family, especially, one of the things that we have to focus on is saving money. So I have a couple of options of what I do. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm not saying that everybody does this. I'm saying this is just what my family does. So if you need an idea of what to do, here's a couple of things that we do with curriculum at the end of every year. And I try to go through this every summer. So with my oldest, I typically save all of my oldest curriculum. And that's half the reason why this stack is so high in my closet. Because my children are 4 school years apart, one being in high school, one being at the beginning of middle school, it's very hard for them to do any family subjects because they're just on 2 very different pages. So a lot of times we don't do anything together anymore, and we haven't for several years. So they each have their own separate curriculum. So what I do is I typically save everything that my oldest does because I might end up passing it down to my youngest, and that way I don't have to repurchase anything. The most I would have to repurchase is like the consumables, the workbooks, student sheets, that type of thing. That saves us a lot of money in the long run, a lot of money. If I can't do the curriculum together, I can at least pass it down. So that's a really, really good, safe option for me to do. And it's come in very handy over the last couple of years. So that's the first thing that I always do. The second thing I do, obviously, is going to be selling. Now, the curriculum that I sell is always going to be the curriculum that my youngest is finished with. So I save the oldest curriculum, I sell the youngest. And that way I can use the money that I get from the youngest curriculum selling, and use it to fund the oldest curriculum, because high school curriculum is a lot more expensive than the middle school or elementary. It just really is, especially when you're talking about science books and labs, and it can get very costly. So if I can't sell something, and sometimes that happens, sometimes I'll put something on eBay and for whatever reason it's not selling. And maybe it's an outdated book, maybe there's a new version out or something. That happens a lot. When we're talking about curriculum books, that does tend to happen sometimes. And, or sometimes I just don't have luck. Sometimes I have to repost it on eBay, or, who knows. But for whatever reason, I just can't seem to sell it online. Then I have 2 options left. If you are like me and you just happen to be blessed enough to have a homeschool store within drivable distance like I do, I can actually drive to the homeschool store several hours away. We make like 1 trip a year, if that. And we will take all of the books that we have in the house that we want to get rid of, and we'll take it down there, and we'll either donate it or they will buy it from us. Now, because it's a resale value type of thing, I don't get nearly what I would sell the book outright for on eBay. I might make half of that. But it's still better than me throwing it in a donation pile or giving it to Goodwill. So I would rather get a little bit for it, and then I can take that money and I can actually use it in their store, or I can use it for whatever I want. Now, what I love about that store is the books are very affordable, and I can go in there and I can find secondhand books if I need it. I can find all kinds of things, from books and puzzles to actually like novels that my youngest would just want to, you know, read real quick, and then, you know, we'll pass those books to somebody else, that type of thing. I can find discounts on practically anything and everything that I need. So that trip is usually a really important trip for me every single year. And I love making that journey out there. It's like homeschool mom heaven. Now, the last option is if I can't do any of those, and, you know, especially like when gas prices were really, really high and I could not drive out there, like it was just not happening. Sometimes what I'll do is I will actually donate those books. And there's two ways that I personally donate. I either donate the books to the secondhand bookstore in our town, or I donate it to my church. Now, depending on the material is where I'll donate it. If it's secular material that we were using for whatever reason, or if it was like a secular book that came with like a big box of books or something like that, it goes to the secondhand store. If the book is a Christian book and it's a solid, good curriculum book or something like that, it gets donated to my church. And that way the other moms who homeschool in my church can use those for free, and they're there for them to either look through or to use for their kids that upcoming year. If you don't have something like that in your church, I highly recommend starting something like that. I have been able to look through so many different materials that I never would have had a chance to actually tangibly look at unless I was at like a homeschool convention. And honestly, those conventions don't come very close to my area, so I have yet to even go to one. I would love to go to one. I wish they had one a little bit closer to me, but it just hasn't been in the cards for me right now. So if you don't have something like that, highly recommend try starting something like that. It has been very beneficial to the homeschooling families in my church, and I'm very grateful that they started this so many years ago, because there's all kinds of material down there that I can just go and take a look at. They also have an actual library where my kids can check out books and things like that, and we have had such a fun time being able to do that. I love the library in my church. I could spend all day in there. I get in trouble because I spend a little bit too much time in there sometimes. So I love being in there. I love donating books, and usually once a year I'll go through all of our bookshelves, and all the books that my kids have grown out of, I will put those in a box and I will send them off to the church so other kids can enjoy them. Now, one last thing that I do, if the books are really good books and I want to keep them, and I don't want to donate them, but my kids have grown out of them, but I either have some strong memory attached to them, or it was like something that my kids really, really loved as children. I have a very small collection of books that I am saving for my grandchildren. I know, I'm thinking very, very far ahead. My youngest is in 6th grade. But one day I expect to have grandchildren, and I want to have a pile of books at my house for them. So yes, I collect books for the future generations of my family. So I am starting that. So that might be something that you might want to think about as well. It's very important to me to have good literature at my house, and, you know, for any children that might come over. So I do have a small collection of books from when they were little, and I have a small growing collection of books from generations that are, you know, classic books and things like that, that are all part of this collection for my future grandchildren. So that is what I have done and what I plan on doing very soon, because the shelves over here, I know you guys can't see them, but the shelves over here are overflowing. I've got to do something with all of these boxes before they start spilling out of my closet and before the books start falling off the shelves on top of my kids' heads. Let me know down in the comments, what do you do? Do you donate, sell? What do you guys do with your books at the end of the year? I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and happy homeschooling.